Hello. How you doing?
Hello. I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. I recorded a podcast episode this morning, and for our main show that we do, I've been hanging out with my dog, who's sitting here on the floor, staring at me with his big brown eyes. But apart from that, I'm just chilling.
Living the
What's news
dream, man.
in?
That's beautiful.
Thank you. What's news in your part of the world? What have you been doing?
I'm watching my cat tear the absolute hell out of a couch right now in the same room.
Sick.
Get out of here. Stop
Love
it,
that.
dude. His name's Mortimer. He's 10 years old. He's still acts like a little kid. He's great.
I fucking
great.
love that name. That's so good.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah, my wife and I love old kind of timey names we have a cat named Mort and a dog named Dottie.
So sick.
But my world this week is just prepping for this tour, man. Honestly, one more week to go until I'm off on my international foray with both bands together. So I'm practicing, I'm packing, I'm doing laundry, I'm unearthing every cool fucking band tee that I should have,
sick.
That I probably almost got rid of years ago and kept for some reason. Maybe they don't fit anymore. I'm gonna wear them.
Yeah, you got to get that rocker uniform ready. You got to have the band shirts. Got to have the one pair of jeans that you wear for
one pair of jeans,
3 weeks or whatever. Yeah.
I still overpack, and I only bring one pair of jeans. Yeah,
it's our burden to bear. I understand.
That's right,
yeah, we got lots to talk about. So, I guess my first question is: have you had to pull double duty like this before? And if so, how did you go?
Yeah, you know what? The last time I would have done it was at Fest in Florida last October, and it was 2 days, 4 sets in 2 days, and it's fun.
Which is a lot.
It's a lot.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. I mean, I will admit that at a place like Fest, where it's a great problem to have, where that you have a lot of friends in town. You know what I mean? There's like every band, every person from the corners of the global kind of punk scene tend to end up in Gainesville that weekend, or most of the people at least. So there's no quick move around town. You're running into people left and right, which is great. It's lovely.
And I imagine on set too, you wouldn't even have to sing half of it because the crowd is singing it for you. They're probably jumping on top of you and singing shit. You could just let them roll.
That's kind of part of it. That's kind of part of it too. I mean, it's just being on a little more of a rigid schedule. It's not like there's no real sexy answer here for how it goes playing double duty. It's a lot of fun. It's you're up there for a while, maybe overstaying your welcome a little bit on stage, which is kind of funny, but it's just funny. There were definitely friends I which was trying to make plans with to see and have a little catch up with, and I just couldn't even do that at Fest in particular. I mean, because it's multiple different venues. Luckily, the one night both bands were playing back to back. That's easy. So that's what this next tour is going to be. That's going to be nice. That's a simplified version of the kind of chaos that happened at Fest.
Yeah,
because you're running around to the other night I was running around between 2 venues and this and that, and so it's a lot to figure out timing wise. But it's the fun part of it is that I get to just rip with both bands, and still being involved with Hot Water is a wild kind of surreal thing to me and to my friends, my oldest friends and best friends in the Flatliners. It is to them as well. So it's really exciting to get everyone together. I feel like this is my Venn diagram tour of all my people now.
White girls in another corner, call it well, call it anything. Hot ball, dreaming in the backseat, living in a head, right in no skin. Saturdays, swinging on a shoestring. Shots fired to reach it up to reset. Only to recover, coming up forever for the cycle takes me in.
Absolutely. I was looking at your kind of discography, the records that you've done with Flatliners, the solo record, the stuff that you've been involved with Hot Water Music, and it does really seem that for the last, nearly a decade at this point, you've kind of synthesized all of your creative stuff to just be in one little pocket, which is kind of cool. But talk to me about that surreal kind of experience, because I would say that Hot Water are a definite influence on you as a musician and an artist, and certainly on the Flatliners as a band. So what's that been like to be a part of it? for nearly a decade. You're on 3 records. Like, I assume they're friends and close buds now, as well as like creative partners. Like, what does that feel like in this surreal kind of aspect that we're talking about?
Yeah, it truly is a wild ride. There are these months that go by, weeks or months that go by, where like we'll chat, we'll be planning stuff, or we'll just be shooting the shit. There's like obviously like it's funny now, probably fans of every band probably find it funny that like every single fucking band on earth has a group chat. Like everyone has a fucking group chat, obviously, right? So,
Yeah.
but finding myself in a group chat with these guys is pretty classic. And yeah, man, like there are these weeks, these months that go by that like I won't see the guys. If because everyone in the band just about has something else, in terms of music to kind of keep them away, and then when we kind of get to converge again and come together and do stuff, it's really special. And it isn't until those moments where I see them all in person again and I'm kind of in it again, whether it's on the road with most of them or in Gainesville making a record with everyone, including Wallard. I feel like, oh yeah, shit, this is like a part of my life.
Yeah, you get that message notification from like Chuck or Chris, and you're like, oh fuck, like they're friends of mine. That's crazy.
Yeah, and like, I mean, you are correct in assuming that they have been a massive influence on me as a songwriter, just as a fan of that kind of punk music, like rock music, whatever you want to call it, and in turn, they're a huge influence on the Flatliners over the years. And we met them years ago, and it was kind of right after they'd gotten back together, right after the reunion, pre-exister and everything. But like, they were playing shows again. We played a couple shows with them. That was really special. Everyone was always just very outgoing and cool. I mean, at that point, George was in Against Me.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he joined the Souls, that kind of like that, those number of years there, like we saw him a lot. We saw George a lot in those years because we toured with Against Me when he was in the band, and we played a lot with the Souls when he joined the band, everything like that. So we'd see all these guys in different corners. You know what I mean? Like I would play the odd acoustic show at Chuck. I actually worked the way going back before all this is that I met Chuck was that I worked for him and Tim Barry on a tour in Canada doing merch.
Shit.
I was their merch guy for like a 2-week tour in the middle of January in Canada, just like not for the faint of heart.
I think I might have seen Chuck and Tim on that tour. I think they came to Australia and played a couple of dates, and I feel like I caught one of those shows. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So it was, it was just like, it was so like bit by bit and felt organic the way that the Flats guys and I got to meet and get to know the Hot Water guys over the years. That by the time we got to play shows with them, they were reunited, obviously, and that was really special. And then we did a tour with them for the 20th anniversary of Hot Water Music, and that was really, really cool. We got to, you get more time with everyone when you're on the road for 3 weeks in a row together, obviously. And it was great. And then, it's just like, I can't imagine a world where the Flats would sound the way we do, given all the twists and turns musically I think we've kind of taken over the years. Like, there's definitely a certain era, and more than that, just a certain part of our DNA that is, I think, like, without question, partly defined by our fandom of Hot Water, right? So
yeah,
it's a weird thing to like set foot into now as a member of Hot Water. The first couple of years I was just playing live with the band. The opportunity would come up every few weeks, couple months, whatever it was, where they weren't sure if Chris Wallard could do these shows, so I was kind of on deck to do them. And then everyone would talk, and then the decision was made by Wallard himself that he wasn't able to do that. So then I had his blessing to step in and play these live shows. And it kind of went like that for the first like year and a half until they asked me to start writing with them, to which I said no at first. Because I didn't want to taint this. Okay. I didn't want to taint this thing that I love. I didn't want to affect and change the genetic makeup of this band that truly means so much to me. Yeah. I thought like I shouldn't get this opportunity. No one should.
It's like fan fiction. You're like, yeah,
exactly.
I'm not sure if I want to do that. Dip my toes into that. Yeah,
that's exactly right. So I thought I can't do this. So I said I turned them down, and then I think a week later or something they asked again, and I was like, yeah, fuck it, sure, okay. It didn't take too much of a twist in my arm because I think after saying no, I was like, what did I just do? What I was like psyching myself to reassuring myself, like, no, like I made the right choice. Like, I can't touch this. You can't touch this. And then when they asked again, I was like, well, they wouldn't ask again for no reason. So, okay, let's do it. And then making the records together has been beautiful. I've learned so much. it gets further cemented, obviously, as a part of my life that really still is just like a funny thing to sit back and be like, what the fuck? Okay.
Too much information and my vulnerability. Can you see over the hedge of my bed? How is it that I still wish you'd mind your business? If I were running out, if I were running out, if I were running out, sincerity now, if I were running out.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
We had Jason on the show last year when you were going through the Vows album cycle, and I had an interesting chat to him about, you know, like being a band that has a 30-year anniversary, which is kind of a crazy thing, and having this kind of career trajectory and longevity in music, but in punk rock especially, which is like its own kind of like strange thing.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what it's been like to play these anniversary shows, of which this kind of Australian and New Zealand run is kind of like an extension of that from last year. But in the context of like being a fan, becoming like a session live guy to a fully fledged member, a writer, like you're on stage playing Hot Water music songs that you wrote or helped write, and then also stuff from the earlier years when you were just a fan. And I got to imagine that that's like a weird thing to just like play one of like, you know, maybe your favorite songs off an old record that you liked as a kid, and then you're playing a song that you're like, oh, I fucking wrote that riff, or like I'm doing shit on this one. Like, what's that like? That's got to be an interesting thing.
It is, you know. I mean, just getting to play those songs by Hot Water Music that I've loved for years and years. First of all, they're a lot more like challenging to play on a guitar than people might realize. At least like Chuck and Waller are very, very good guitar players, very creative writers too. Like, I mean, figuring that stuff out was like my apartment looked like a fucking crime scene. You know what I mean? It was I was trying to connect all these dots, and it was crazy.
Got the red twine everywhere. You're like, exactly. Okay, this connects with this. Yeah.
Yeah, I looked absolutely out of my mind, and felt that way too. But no, you know what? It is a really interesting kind of like ride to take throughout the set, because typically lately we're, you know, probably opening with a song, like a newer song that I'm a part of, which is so, it's such a thrill to even be able to say that sentence to you, honestly. Like it is not lost on me how fortunate I am to be involved here. And like, so I get the thrill alongside my friends and bandmates of seeing the reaction that new song gets. And man, lucky for us, I mean, like the last couple records that I've been a part of, they've been received very well. You know,
they're really good. I was telling Jason, thanks, like the last record has some of my favorite ever Hot Water music songs.
Amazing.
It's really, really good. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, it's funny because I have this sightline of this band of fan first and now also member. So I can kind of see things in two different ways at one time.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I think I can say in a different way, like that those records rock. I mean, but they all do, because I'm a fan of everything they did before too. But if I were in your shoes, tiny little bit of bias, of course. But I feel like if I were in your shoes, I would really enjoy these Hot Water music songs and these new albums and stuff. So I get that thrill of like that first song we're opening with, if it's a newer song and it's connecting with people, like that makes you feel good as a part of the process and someone in the band, you know, and you're up there with your friends that you wrote that with. And then you get to like crack into Jack of All Trades or Remedy or I mean, like No Division or End of a Gun. Like, it's just like, that is the ultimate pump up in a set. You know what I mean? I mean, it's different than me playing songs with the Flats over these years, because like the pump up still exists, but it's in a completely different frame of reference, right? Where like we know as Flats, like what songs we always love playing, what usually hits well, what usually gets a reaction out of people, you know what I mean? Like, and that's all kind of baked in at this point, and it's all a part of muscle memory, and you're just kind of, it's all great. And like, if you're having a fun show, then you're having a fun show. It's not as much, it's just a different frame of reference. It's not as much like it's hard for me to remove myself from that Flat scenario and feel the same way I would about playing like A Flight and a Crash, like the title track of that record. That's like one of the greatest album openers of all time to me, you know? So it is, you do ride this wave, and I honestly, it's easy to, I mean, goddamn, like so many so many sets I've had to like look like in my own head, just think to myself, like, okay, like you got to relax right now because you're rocking out pretty hard. We got like 20 more songs to play. There's a lot, like there's so many times that has happened so many times. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, man, it's crazy. I'm still that fan first, you know. So being able to be up there and play those songs is special.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I do want to touch on some of the other stuff that you're a part of, because as important as Hot Water Music is to where you're at now, obviously Flats is, you know, your baby and the thing that you've been a part of. So the last record came out in 2022, and you also have a solo record that came out as well. So you have a bunch of creative stuff that you're doing that's not just solely reliant to Hot Water Music. Flats is still going. You've got your solo stuff. Where are you pulling your creative energy from, and how are you allocating pieces of that to these different projects? Is that something that you have to be consciously aware of, or is it a lot more organic and you just know, like, that's a Hot Water thing, that's going to be a Flats thing, maybe that's my own shit? How are you allocating that in your head?
Man, I get asked this from time to time, and it doesn't. I have no real way to answer the question that makes a ton of sense, and I think that means that it's more an organic process than anything else.
Just like a subconscious kind of like intuition, right?
Yeah. Well, because Flats is my baby, and it's the thing I've done with my oldest, greatest friends for 23 years this year.
Damn.
Yeah.
You got a 30-year anniversary coming up for the Flats, brother. Yeah.
It's wild. You know, and like, so there's so much of my identity, especially musically, but not only musically, you know what I mean? But especially in that regard, is from this band, is in this band, you know, and like we have, I think those twists and turns I spoke of earlier are really it's really something we're proud of, that we've been able to pull this off this whole time while trying these different kind of musical things over the years, and still like it always like feeling like us and sounding like us for the most part. I think it's maybe the stuff that hasn't sounded like us in immediately to people has grown on people to understand. That they now understand like this is a part of us as well. To show these other sides of ourselves, you know. I think that I'm really lucky to have this outlet. I think I'm really lucky to be in the position I am, to have not only a band of my oldest friends that's been going for over 20 years, and then joining one of my favorite bands that's enjoying a 30th anniversary, and then being able to also find the time and, you know, play with other musicians to help make ththose solo records that I've been able to make. I'm very fortunate for all that. And I think in there's something about just like, there is a lot of just trusting my gut about an idea in particular. Say I come up with an idea, and typically, because I'm on the road so much, those ideas get stockpiled. You know, they're just bits and pieces. It's a lyric, it's a chord structure, progression, it's a riff. They all pile up until I have some time at home to really like put the puzzle, like to get the crime scene back going.
Yeah. Are you like a notes app guy, or are you like a physical journal guy? Like how are you putting
I'm a notes
all that
app
stuff
guy.
Okay.
I am a modern digital boy.
That's fine.
I'm just on the
it
move
works
so much.
It's in your pocket every day. I mean? Like, it makes sense.
Exactly. Like I do kind of romanticize bringing like the journal, everything. I also have fucking awful penmanship. Like my grandfather was a doctor, and I think I inherited his awful
chicken scroll.
Excellent. Yeah. So, you know, I think I just like, but I'm also more than like a notes app guy. I'm a voice note app guy.
Oh, okay.
It's a lot more of that. Like I think like my voice note like scraps all title stuff as like I kind of dedicate and dictate like what that will maybe come to be. It's a lot of work with titles and stuff. But like last unnamed one is like new recording 1142. And like, I bet I'm not even scratching the surface on like some other people that do what I do, meaning like just traveling and writing all the time
Sure.
and stuff. Like, I'm a big voice notes app guy. So I take these pieces when I get home, and I can kind of start to like formulate them and shape them and sculpt them more into what I think, which pile, so to speak, I think they could fit into, they could land ultimately in. And the flats one is something that I'm just like, that's muscle memory now. I feel like if something hits me, I'm like, that's a flat song. Like I almost know before I've finished, like kind of coming up with this riff for the first time and laying it down on my voice note thing for the first time. Like, that feels like a flat thing. Solo stuff is more delicate. It's more like, if it can just live on this acoustic guitar, maybe that's just my own thing, you know. Doesn't have to be made, it doesn't into this other thing, doesn't have to be twisted and turned into a bigger production. It could be if I want it to be, but it could just live this way. Hot Water, learning the musical identity of what that music feels like has taken some time, even though I'm a huge fan. But I think that I really think that, you know, Feel the Void and Vows do have a little bit of a different kind of twist on Hot Water's thing that they've always had. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I don't think that's just me. I just think it's like, I'm not saying that. I think it's the amount of time, like mostly that like those other, like all the other guys have spent together.
No, I think that's exactly right. I mentioned something similar to Jason, that it was like I don't know, like the buzzword, the journalistic crutch is like, it's a more mature sound. But I mean, you know, those guys they're old guys. They've been banging around doing Hot Water for 30 years. Like, you would expect a certain level of maturity and a certain level of, I don't know, self-assuredness and like confidence to come into it. And I think you hear that in those songs. Like, they're very pure in their essence, right? Like, they're not,
that's cool.
They're not trying to be like super experimental or anything, because, you know, that's not what they're trying to do at this point in time. So like,
of course,
I understand what you mean. Like, that identity is kind of key. So
yeah, you know, it's funny you say that, because I've always thought them to be, even going back to like the first 3 records of Hot Water, like I've always found them to be I've always considered them to be a very mature band, making mature songs and albums, and you know, they're talking about real shit the whole way through. I mean, like, so much of that record, what I understand No Division, the record, to be about, is like still very unfortunately true today. You know, it's extremely like political and like socially conscious album and all these things, and they've always been a very mature band and like guiding light to me in writing that way. And I've just turned out to be, I mean, I kind of figured this out years ago, but I turned out to be someone who doesn't usually write about the stuff that makes me stoked. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not, it's like with my solo stuff, there are some more love songs for sure, but they're still kind of rooted in pain and kind of loneliness, because I'm away a lot of the time, you know, and these kinds of things. So
it's that that blues writing, right? You know, you got to like,
I'm not typically
give voice
writing
to the
about
pain.
Sunny days. Exactly. So yeah, but with writing with Hot Water now, I'm still learning like what the Hot Water pile, quote unquote, that for my contributions really looks like and feels like and sounds like. But it is something that I'm getting more and more familiar with all the time, and that's really exciting to me. That's really exciting to me, to be able to get to the end of hitting, you know, just hit and record on my voice note thing while I'm on tour somewhere in Europe or Canada or wherever I am. You know, I'm sure it'll happen on the next tour in Australia.
I'm sure it will.
At sound check or something, where like we just duck out into the corner and kind of record this thing. And it's amazing to me that the process keeps getting refined. You know what I mean? The process really like turns into more of a process all the time, because it's really just like a gut feeling and just pulling things out of the air. And Wallard said something to me really beautiful one time that I mean, I'll butcher the delivery, but essentially, he's a firm believer. I don't think he'd mind me saying that, you know, everything's kind of been written, right? There's only so many chords. There are only so many ideas that you can really pull from. So we're kind of, as songwriters, we're discovering these things, you know, and we're not to say that we're just discovering something else and repurposing it. I don't think that's what he means. And that's not what I believe, but we're we're discovering this music that's just, it's in our brains or it's in the ether or something. We're just finding it. It feels like a magic trick every time, you know? It's really beautiful. And then in like throughout that process, you kind of discover more about yourself. You know what I mean? And I know that could sound corny, but it's very true.
No.
And at least the way I write, especially with lyrics, I discover more about myself, the way I see the world, the way I move through it, you know, the way I want to be moving through it, the way the world I want to see me moving through, and all these things. And then, you know, musically, that unspoken innate thing of just, like I said, like knowing yourself by the end of it, you know, that is like, it's never been the goal, but it keeps revealing itself as like, maybe this is what it's about.
It's the byproduct.
It's knowing yourself. It's learning about yourself through sharing yourself with, you know, like the world through your music and stuff. So yeah, it's really beautiful to be able to have those conversations with not only all the Flats guys, but the Hot Water guys, and then like learn so much from these really talented people I've just like surrounded myself with. I really fell into a good thing, man. It's cool.
You did. You're on a good wicket. Yeah, I think that's kind of a beautiful thing, like self-discovery through art, but also through punk rock. Like that's the journey. That's what you're doing. It's beautiful. Right. We've only got a couple of minutes, so I'll wrap things up here. Excited for you to make your way back here and do double duty. I will put links in the description for people to go to shows, check out the records, all that good stuff. Chris, thank you so much for taking time and jumping on the pitch of Discontent. This has been sick.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah.
No
Great
worries.
to chat with you.
Thank you, man. Subscribe now to the Pitch of Discontent Patreon to receive access to extended cuts of our bonus episodes, as well as exclusive behind-the-scenes content, monthly Patreon-only episodes, member-only votes, the TPD community chat, and much more. Go now to patreon.com/tpdpod and join for as little as $5 a month. That link again is patreon.com/tpdpod. Thanks for watching the show.
Here we go.